Welcome into the Late Night Gamecock Show. My name is Matthew Anderson, and joining me as always is my co-host Alex Jones of thebigspur.com. Alex, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good. We finally were able to go live. I'm sure we'll wonder why for a while we weren't able to go live 30 minutes ago, but hey, we're here now.
No, so here's the thing. I slept terribly last night. I didn't go to sleep till like 2:30, 3 o'clock. I don't know. Maybe I was so excited for this show. And I was like, look, after dinner, I'm gonna take a cat nap. And I set my alarm for 7:10 a.m. instead of 7:10 p.m. So this is completely on me. But funny enough, I got like 18 phone calls, and I was like, "What the heck?" And I looked at my phone, and it was like I don't know, like 7:55. I was like, "Well, I'm not late to work. What the heck's going on?" But I was late to work. So
Yeah. Hey, but we're here now.
We're here now. So look, this show is going to be our NCAA tournament preview. We do this every year. It's one of the more fun shows that we do because last year the Gamecocks were involved in March Madness and NCAA basketball tournament. This year they're not. Just really quickly, going through this. Basketball season's over for the men. Alex and I will be here over the next couple of weeks talking about everything that's going to happen with the transfer portal. I think there's going to be numerous players that leave the program. I think there's going to be some guys that enter the program. I don't know what's going to happen with Colin Murray Boyles yet, but we'll see. That's kind of like touch and go and wait and see. As far as the women go, they have secured the number 2 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, so they're going to be a 1 seed. They're going to play in Columbia this weekend. They start Friday, then they play again Sunday. I think that, Alex, that particular side of the bracket looks pretty favorable for South Carolina, even though they did not get the number 1 overall seed.
Yeah, I think even with not giving, like you mentioned, not getting the number 1 seed, I do like their draw. I think it kind of ended up being favorable for them. And obviously, starting off with Tennessee Tech on Friday and then getting either Utah or Indiana in that game too. I think you obviously like South Carolina State is there. Then, I like their path to a Final Four and eventually trying to get back national championship. I think it's a pretty, it's always going. I mean, the first few rounds, I think they should have no problem. Then you're always going to run into those tough teams around that Sweet 16 Elite A range. But I almost wonder if you couldn't have asked for almost a better draw for South Carolina.
Yeah, I look at it, and the Gamecocks are going to be in Columbia their first 2 games. I think you and I both think that they'll find their way to the Sweet 16. After that, they open up against Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech's 26-5 on the season, but they are a 16 seed, and then they're going to play the winner of that Utah Indiana game. But the winners are going to play on Sunday. Fully expect the Gamecocks to advance. The 4 seed in the bracket is Maryland. I think they beat Maryland last year. And then the 5 seed is Alabama. They beat Alabama by 18 in Tuscaloosa this year already. We'll talk about all the women's stuff, next week when everything kind of comes into more clear picture. But they have a really good draw, like Alex said. With softball and baseball, softball did drop 5 games in a row. You have the 3 games they lost to Oklahoma, all by one run on the road to the number 2 team in the country. They lost to Coastal, then they lost the first game of the series over the weekend to Georgia, who's ranked in the top 12 as well, or top 13, and then won their next 2 games. So Gamecock softball team got back off the mat. They're still top 12 in the country, mainly top 10 in all the polls that I could find. Baseball was tough, man. Baseball, they've won all their games against teams not ranked in the top 15 in the country. So, you look at that, but then you look at it and the losses, getting swept by Clemson and losing 2 out of 3 to Oklahoma. Heartbreak on Sunday, and all those games that they've lost have been by an average of 3 runs. So we're hoping that the offense comes alive. I think the pitching staff's pretty good overall. But Alex, just your quick thoughts on baseball before we move on to a little bit of spring football, not much, and then we move on to Mitchell for this NCAA basketball tournament.
Yeah, I think with baseball, it just comes down to the final inning. So that Sunday game, you're looking good. You look like South Carolina was going to, get a much needed SEC series win. Every single series is a much needed win, but one that you really need to get, heading into the South Carolina's going into. And then it really kind of came down to you there in the late innings to hold off Oklahoma coming back. And then you kind of felt when Oklahoma come back and got it tied and in extra innings, they it felt like a basketball game where a team makes a late run, come back to tie the game up, sends it overtime, and it feels like that team always time with that comeback gets a win. And it kind of felt like that same thing with Oklahoma. They just did just enough there at the end in the extra innings to escape Columbia with the series win, which was it was just that's one that's going to sting South Carolina, I think, when you look down the road. But it was good for South Carolina to go and find a way to get a win last night against College of Charleston in the midweek.
Yeah, you never want to get swept. You want to win your home series, and you want to win at least one on the road. I think that we'll learn a whole lot more about South Carolina after this upcoming weekend when they travel to Arkansas, number 3 team in the country, and we'll see how they do. Look, I still think that this pitching staff is pretty good overall. I don't know if it's a top 10 staff in the country, but I do think that the pitching staff is good. And let's see if the bats get hot. If the bats get hot, I don't think that it's out of the realm of possibility for this team to be a super regional team. I don't know if they're going to host a regional this year, but they're going to have to start winning some of these games against the opponents that are, theoretically better than them. And we'll see what happens. Alex, with football, spring practice, I believe, started today. The pro day was either yesterday or the day before. Not much we can really talk about with spring practice. I think you guys are in there for maybe 30 minutes today before they kicked you guys out.
Yeah, we got to see the first 3 periods, and really it was just kind of seeing who all was there. Obviously, the big, maybe the biggest story was Vakari Swain not being there, and according to Sports and Information Director Steve Frank, it's an academic issue. So, and that's one where we don't know what the timeline's looking like, but that's kind of all the information we have on it right now. But I think that was probably the biggest story out of it today, and got to see. You got today the biggest thing we got to see was looking to see some guys who've maybe made the big physical transition from year 2. I thought Fred Johnson was one that looked really good. Ronald Faison, obviously he's new to the team, but he looks like him as well. So that's basically a lot of what we got to see, other than some kick returns like that. But obviously I think that was the point of spring practice today.
Yeah, so we're going to be all over the women's team as they go through their march through the NCAA basketball tournament. The men's team, when we get this transfer stuff and figure out who's going to be on the roster next year, who's going, and obviously baseball and then football, we're going to be covering in great detail. But Alex, let's go ahead and hit the intro, and when we get back, we're going to have Mitch Dieter. My favorite resident bracketologist, not really bracketologist, but just college basketball insider. I promise you that you can watch ESPN, you can watch CBS Sports, you can watch whatever channel you want to watch. Mitchell watches more basketball than those guys do. This guy's up late. He's crunching the Pac-12 network or Pac-10, whatever it is anymore. At 11 p.m., he's watching the UC Davis versus whoever. So excited to have Mitch. And when we come back, we're going to talk all this bracket stuff. I'm really excited. So Alex, go ahead and roll the intro.
Welcome to the Late Night Gamecock Show from Chief Sports South Carolina. Here are your hosts, Matt Anderson and Alex Jones of thebigspur.com.
So welcome back into the show. Look, the Big Spur and Inside the Gamecocks has a really cool thing that's happening right now. And let me go ahead and find the sponsorship read. But if you go to Ernie.com, I believe it's Ernie.com, what they're doing is a pretty cool promo If the Gamecocks find a way to have the most people that actually fill out a bracket, they're going to throw a big party for all the Gamecock fans out there. They're going to pay for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you go to Ernie.com and register, it's free. Enter the March Madness tournament on the homepage and select South Carolina Gamecocks as your team. Fill out your brackets by Thursday. Sit back and win. It's really, really cool because if you have the best bracket in the country, you get $5,000 in cash. So if the Gamecock fans have the best showing in the contest, South Carolina wins the 2025 Ernie Cup, and a celebration will follow with everyone invited to spread the word. Again, that's Ernie.com. Ernie.com, ERNIE.com. And go ahead and fill out your bracket. You're doing it anyway. You might as well help the Gamecocks and the show while you're doing it and get ready for a big party. So excited for that. Alex, how about you bring Mitchell in and we can get started on this bracket?
Hey, what's up, Matt?
Hey, Mitch. So for a little bit of background on Mitch played college basketball, and his brother is actually a multiple state champion high school basketball coach in South Carolina. And look, Mitch and I might not agree on everything, but I think that we both agree that we love college basketball, and it's a lot of fun to fill out this bracket. Mitch actually has had a long-running bracket challenge, and we'll give you the details on that later. But Mitch, so how are you feeling about this bracket overall to start out?
Hey, Matt, I love it. Thanks for the intro. I appreciate the kind words as far as calling me a bracketologist. I don't know if I would want to do the math to be a bracketologist for that, but I'm definitely a full season ball watcher when it comes to college basketball. You mentioned that the college basketball has been in the Dieter family, basketball just in general. Ever since I can remember. And March Madness is my Christmas, and I guess the brackets are kind of the presents that go with that. So I have a few takes off the rip about the tournament as a whole, and then I know you kind of want to get into some of these previews, potential matchups, and things like that. The first one I wanted to get off is for those that just tune in to March Madness, maybe the casual basketball fan that is going to start watching some games. If you're sitting there and you're wondering, hey, some of these names seem really familiar, but and they're kind of in tournament lore, but they're playing for different teams, aren't they? You'd be absolutely correct. Some of the tournaments of the last 4 or 5 years, there are people and players across the nation that have switched teams thanks to the transfer portal and NIL era that are significant contributors for some of the teams. So we'll get into those. Most notably, I was looking down the roster of it. If you think about that Cinderella FAU run from a couple of years ago, their fingerprints are all over this tournament at a number of different schools. You've got the coach at Michigan with his player. You've got one of the star players at Florida. You've got a star player at Arkansas. So, Caleb Love down at Arizona. So we'll get into all those to make sure you're familiar and not thinking you're going crazy with it. The second thing I'll say before we get into this is I know everyone wants to, pick the really cool upset and feel awesome about that. And with the transfer portal, NIL, I think the parity of college basketball has ramped up even further the last couple of years. But I would caution you to take those Cinderellas all the way. I think there is a clear tier one level teams, whether it's 6 or to 9 of those teams. I would say. And they're not necessarily all the 1s and 2s. There's some teams that have dealt with injuries that I think are very dangerous, and we'll talk about those as well. But I would caution about the 6 to 10 seed teams making a Cinderella run this year, as I think while parity across the board has been great for the game all around, I do think there is a head and shoulders difference from the top teams as you think about trying to win 4, 5, 6 games in a row to make it to San Antonio. So I'll toss it back to you with those thoughts.
Yeah, and so Alex, it's fun what Mitch is saying right now because last night, and I think Mitch, we've done this for like 15 years now, but we always have a players draft it's kind of like fantasy basketball, fantasy football, but we pick players that are in the NCAA tournament and we combine their points, rebounds, and assists, and we all pick 10 players to go all the way. And it's really funny to watch the dynamics shift throughout that entire draft because you might have the first overall pick and you take a player, let's say last night Cooper Flagg was the first player picked. Well, then all of a sudden, everyone else in the group has to decide, all right, am I going to grab some Duke players to kind of mess with this guy that's number one? How far is Duke going to go? And we were talking during our draft. It was, well, I think there's only 8 to 10 teams that can really win this thing. And if you're going to grab some players from, 2 players from, let's say, Texas Tech, I mean, are they going to go to the Final Four or are they not? So, Alex, you've been paying attention to mainly the SEC this year, but also the rest of college basketball. What's your general take before we dive into the bracket?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, with 14 SEC teams, and I'm interested to see how many of them actually make it to the second round or the second weekend. Like that's something that I'm kind of watching because I think you think about those top tier SEC teams, like they're probably going to make it. But what does Georgia do against Gonzaga? What does Vanderbilt do against St. Mary's? What does Oklahoma do against UConn? Like those are teams I'm kind of watching to see. Like we talk about how deep the SEC is, but I think it has a chance to show it with some of those games that those close seeds. That's one thing I'm really keeping an eye on this weekend.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Well, with that being said, Mitch and Alex, let's go ahead and dive into the bracket. I think the best way to do it is to just go one region at a time and go till we get to the Final Four.
Yep.
And then we'll make our Final Four picks. We're going to start left to right on most brackets, the same way that the selection show did everything. So, Mitch, do you think, and Alex too, and I'll chime in, do you think Auburn's going to have any trouble with Alabama State?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Well, we'll go. I'm writing here so we can keep track of things. I will say something pretty cool about this Auburn-Alabama State game. The Alabama State coach he got his first head coaching job at age 55, and he was kind of like tabbed as a long-time assistant coach, probably going to be an assistant coach. So it's really cool to see him, get that opportunity and not have to go to a playing game and be with NCAA tournament with Alabama State. So going down the bracket here, we have Louisville versus Creighton. For me, this is a game where I got to figure out what the ACC was this year. Louisville kind of ran through the ACC. So did Clemson. So did Duke. Creighton played a much tougher schedule. I lean Creighton here, but I want to get y'all's takes.
Yeah, I lean Creighton here. It's an interesting draw, and we probably get into it to the next round too. Louisville playing in Lexington seems like a somewhat of a home area. Louisville, Lexington, not very far away. However, if you know Louisville and their history at Rupp Arena, it is not good. Granted, that's playing Kentucky, so that's a little bit of a different ball game there, and especially with Louisville program being down. Obviously, Pat Kelsey did an unbelievable job in year one at Louisville here. I would probably lean Creighton. Louisville has dealt with some injuries. Chucky Hepburn, obviously former Wisconsin, Terrence Edwards Jr. from JMU, really good players, and I think they'll have a good chance. This is the first game of the tournament, so we'll be kicking this one off tomorrow, and we'll half the country will probably have lost already their perfect bracket. But I would agree with you, Matt. Kalkbrenner, Stephen Ashworth, if they're even sort of hitting shots, I think Creighton would win this game and provide an interesting matchup. But either one of these teams, honestly, would be a good matchup in the next round, especially if you think Louisville. I mean, Auburn getting the number one overall seed and then potentially having to play Louisville and Lexington would be a very interesting draw for them. But I would lean Creighton here.
What's your take on this, Alex?
Yeah, I was going to say I was a little surprised Louisville was an 8 seed. I thought they could get a little bit better seed. I was kind of surprised by it, and I think I wonder if them getting part of that, putting them in Lexington is kind of a little bit of a help to them just from that standpoint. Like, did they kind of give them that? But I want to say Louisville because I think they're going to want to go out there and prove that they are better than what they're seeded. But sometimes you can see that work against teams, you know, that maybe put a little too much into that. So I'm going to lean Creighton as well in this one.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on this game is, Kalkbrenner, who Mitch already mentioned, like Louisville might just say, go get 40 and 20 and let everyone else score 30 points. And, I think Pat Kelsey's a really good coach. I think that he knows what Creighton wants to do. But Creighton, I just think, has the better overall record so far, strength of record, I should say, and the opponents they've beaten. So, yeah, we're going to go Creighton there. So if you're just catching up, it's Auburn beating Alabama State, and then it is Creighton over Louisville. This 5-12 game, and look, it seems like 5-12 is always something that you hear people talking about on the national stage. I think that's kind of shifted to the 6-11 game personally, but Michigan, I feel bad for them because they won the Big Ten conference tournament. It feels like the selection committee just didn't care at all about that. And Michigan's played a lot of close games this year. I think that, they had 7 or 8 games that were decided by 3 or less points. And I think they won like 6 or 7 of those games. UC San Diego is a team that's fun to watch, man. That's a team that's going to bomb it from outside. They play good defense. But at the same time, I think that this line is Michigan minus like 2.5 or something like that, 3.5. I lean Michigan. I just think that, those 2 7-footers they have with Danny Wolf and the other kid, like, I think it's going to be too much. So too much pick and roll, too much action, and Michigan finds a way to win. But I would not be surprised if this is an upset.
Matt, I could not disagree with you more on the fact that this is an upset watch. UC San Diego is not a very good basketball team. They won a lot of games in their conference. Trust me, stayed up late watching some of their games. I think I put this on Twitter. I may have even texted this to you a couple of weeks ago. I don't care who UC San Diego matches up against, as long as it's a P5 team. They're going to get blown out. You will see me. When is this? Late night Thursday, late night tomorrow. I will be finding every alternate spread you can give me for Michigan, and I will be hammering it because I think they are going to win by 20 plus against UC San Diego. But Matt, you're right. Everyone tries to look at the 12-5 initially and try and pick the fun upset pick. And I do think there's at least one in this bracket that is going to be a fun one to pick that I have. But you're right. The 6-11 is in the data backs that up. That's more common, at least in the modern era. But Alex, I don't know if you feel the same way as me, but I got Michigan in a route here.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I haven't really been buying into the UC San Diego kind of upset hype train. I just think the 2 7-footers, as Matt mentioned, Golden and Wolf, are going to be too much in the paint for them. And, maybe it's close for a little bit in the first half. I think that's just going to be too much for them to overcome.
Agreed.
So we're all on Michigan. I'm saying sprinkle on UC San Diego. I'm saying, maybe take, Mitch is saying alternate lines, but look, the best part about the NCAA tournament is that you have the opportunity to pick up upsets. And then if you want to gamble, you can gamble on it. Moving on, Texas A&M, Yale. Obviously, Yale just stunned Auburn last year. Yale is a team that is going to get offensive rebounds. They're going to muck this game up. It's hard for me because, like, Texas A&M, I feel like it's kind of been in a funk. I don't know if I think that they're living on the first 60% of their resume right now, the first 60% of their season. I think this game is like a 7.5 point spread. I would probably take Yale to cover that spread, but I do think that Wade Baldwin, the fourth, is going to be the X factor here. I think he's the best player on the court. So A&M and Yale, what you guys have?
Yeah, I was close to going with Yale on this, but I just don't feel like they're going to be able to do an upset 2 years in a row like this. The key for Yale in this one is we all know Texas A&M doesn't shoot the 3-ball wall. They're 31%. I think Yale's right now at 38%. That could be the key if they're going to win this game. If they can have a good shooting night. I just don't know. I think Wade Taylor may just be a little bit too much for that team, but I think it's going to be close, and it's going to come down to the end, but I got A&M barely getting this one.
Yeah, I'd agree. I liked Yale. Yale is a dangerous 13. I would have liked them better if they were playing maybe a different 4. But I think A&M is the game that Yale is going to try and play. A&M is better at that game. And, I love Buzz Williams as a coach. I think they have too much firepower, even if it is. And Matt, I like the 7.5 line. I think it's probably a fairly close game. You might be sweating that a little bit with some free throws at the end, but I would agree that A&M's the play here.
Yeah, moving on. Ole Miss and North Carolina. Whew. Chris Beard, I think, is a much better coach than Hubert Davis. Just between me, you, and the wall over here, I think that Sean Padula is a gamer. He's not going to be surprised by anything North Carolina throws at them. North Carolina obviously routed San Diego State last night in Dayton. I don't know. It's one of those things where you're going to hear everyone. If you listen to a show like this, you're going to hear about this. But someone from the first four weekend always makes it to the Sweet 16 round of 32. I'm just not sold that it's going to be North Carolina, but I'm going to pick North Carolina in this game.
I'm with you there, Matt. As much as North Carolina shouldn't have been in this tournament. You've heard everyone say it. They shouldn't have been. But two things can be true at the same time. They shouldn't have been in the tournament, and they're going to win 2 games in the tournament. Like that's how it happens with the play-in game. And I can't trust either of the play-in teams tonight, Xavier or Texas, as far as I can throw them. So I trust North Carolina. You saw the shooting last night. If they start making shots outside of RJ Davis, it's going to be a tough hill to climb for that Ole Miss team. Nothing Ole Miss has done this year has been like overly impressive to me, especially away from home. I like North Carolina here. You mentioned Chris Beard and Hubert Davis. Hubert Davis is 8-2 as the North Carolina coach in the tournament. Like that's pretty good. Knows how to get his team rallied. And again, you have a guy like RJ Davis on that team who's going to be the best player on the floor, hands down. And when it comes tournament time, especially when it's a guard, that matters.
Yeah, I am sold that North Carolina is going to win this game. I'm pretty confident in it too. I feel like unless Sean Padula just goes off, which could very well happen, but North Carolina's going to have already one NCAA tournament game under the belt, so they're going to have some of those NCAA tournament jitters out of the way. But I feel like as Mitch mentioned, this feels like the one, not the other game that's going to happen tonight. This feels like the one that's going to be where one of these first 4 teams goes through, and I think North Carolina's going to do it.
Yeah, I agree. Iowa State, Lipscomb. Iowa State's obviously without one of their best players. I don't think it matters in this matchup. I'm going to go ahead and move Iowa State along unless you guys have any problem with that.
All good.
Yep. Well, we'll talk about Iowa State here in a little bit, I think, but we're not going to talk about in this game. Marquette, New Mexico. This is another trendy upset pick. I'm one of the people that doesn't trust Shaka Smart as far as I can throw him when it comes to big games. Consistently, Marquette just seems to not answer the bell. But, Marquette was a top 5 preseason team. They have more talent than New Mexico. Let's not even joke about that. I'm gonna take Marquette here, and I think that Marquette's probably better than their 7 seed.
One of the best first-round guard matchups you can possibly have in a tournament setting with Donovan Dent and Cam Jones here. So that'll be exciting nonetheless. I would agree. I think I like Marquette here. The Fade Mountain West in the tournament has been making money over the last couple of years, and I potentially might go against that later in the tournament. But New Mexico, we saw San Diego State get blown out by a team that had more talent and good guard play last night. Same conference with New Mexico and San Diego State. They're relatively right around the same as far as the season went in conference for them. So I'm good with Marquette here as well.
Nah.
Yeah, Alex.
Nah, I'm going to Mexico. Donovan Dent's going to go off. Donovan Dent's going to go off. They beat Shaka Smart and Marquette. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, it would not surprise me at all if he didn't go for 40 points in this game and just control the entire game. So, by the way, just so all of you know, what I'm doing is if 2 of the 3 of us agree on a game, that's what I'm going moving forward. So, Alex disagrees on this one, but we are moving Marquette ahead. And so then we go Michigan State Bryant. I know at least one of my friends is a pretty big Bryant supporter here. I think this line's like 18.5, 19.5. I think Michigan State can name their number here.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
We'll
Excited to watch Earl Timberlake.
We'll talk Michigan State in the next matchup.
Yeah, for sure. So we're gonna go. So we have Auburn, Creighton, Michigan, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Iowa State, Marquette, and Michigan State advancing here. We're gonna finish out this East bracket here. Auburn, Creighton. Look, I don't think Creighton's gonna be scared. They're not gonna be scared of Auburn. Auburn will have now won 2 of their last 6 games, assuming that they win that game against the 16 seed. I just think that Auburn, I don't want to say they got bored, but Bruce Pearl has been talking about the pressure that's been on this team for so long. And if I'm an Auburn player, an Auburn fan, I want him to stop talking about the pressure, because that just makes more pressure, if that makes sense to anybody. But I do think that Auburn is the more talented team, the better team. And I'm going to go ahead and move Auburn forward unless y'all really care too much about this one.
No, I agree. The problem is Creighton. I love Stephen Ashworth as a point guard. He's gonna be in fits. Auburn can throw 3 or 4 different people at him throughout the entire game. And Creighton's one of those teams. I know Kalkbrenner is one of the best in the country at avoiding foul trouble. If Kalkbrenner gets in foul trouble, they are in real trouble if he picks up 2 early ones. So there's just so much variance with that Creighton team. I think Auburn just has too much and handles that one fairly easily.
Yeah, I'm there. Alex, what do you think?
Great, 100%.
All right, so now we're going to move on to Michigan and Texas A&M. If you want me to flip a coin on this one, I will. I really don't have a strong lean one way or the other. I think that the SEC was a better conference this year than the Big Ten was. But at the same time, I can't discount that Michigan might be figuring it out right now. They've won so many close games, and they know how to win those games. Like, that's a skill that you learn, winning close games. And I don't think that the moment's going to be too big for Michigan here. I lean Michigan, but what do y'all think?
I do too. I was just saying I do too. It's going to be close. I mean, it just feels like A&M's been a little bit too much up and down here, kind of this back half of the season. And I mean, we talked about earlier with the way they can shoot the ball or struggle to shoot the ball. Like, it just feels like it could be one of those games where Michigan kind of locks them down a little bit. And if A&M's not hitting from the 3 and they're having some issues inside with the 7-footers, I think it could be a tough day for A&M. So I'll go Michigan.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I also just think while I like Buzz Williams, I mean, Dusty May is a great coach. Took FAU to a Final Four run. I mentioned that up at the top. If you go back and watch one of the first couple of games of Michigan's season versus what they look like now, it's a completely different team. Just because he is kind of evolved that team to. Everyone thought playing 2 7-footers was crazy at the beginning of the year, and it didn't really mesh until they started figuring it out. I like Michigan here. To Alex's point, A&M's been too up and down for me to pick them to go to the Sweet 16, even though that would be an intriguing rematch in the Sweet 16 with A&M and Auburn.
Oh, it definitely would. And like, I'm so interested to see when these SEC teams play again, because they know each other so well. And you're going to have a couple matchups this year, I think, with SEC teams, either in the Sweet 16, round of 32, Elite 8, Final Four. North Carolina, Iowa State. See, this one's tough for me because I do think that, look, I watched the North Carolina Duke game. I saw Duke get up by 25 points and North Carolina claw back into it. I think they're playing better now than they have at any point during the season. But I think that Iowa State, despite the injury, is still a better team. And you can only be 2-12 against quad 1 opponents so long before you're going to be 2-13. So I'm going to take Iowa State here. Anybody have any issue with that?
No, Magic runs out. This is potentially a game where Otzelberger and the Iowa State team puts the North Carolina guards in a straight jacket. They maybe shoot themselves out of it. Iowa State, I know we didn't talk a lot about them with the Lipscomb matchup. Even with Keyshawn Gilbert out, they are a team that was trending to be a 1 or a 2 seed until they dealt with injuries in the middle of the Big 12 season. They're still a really talented roster. I mean, their only loss in the non-con was a game in Maui when they were up 18 against Auburn. So that's when they were kind of firing. They're getting healthier. Like I said, without Gilbert, that is a loss, but I don't think that affects them against North Carolina. I think it's a really good basketball team.
Yeah, unless North Carolina shoots the ball like they did in the first half, I don't see, or last night, I don't see it. I think it ends there too.
Yeah.
So the next one here, y'all, is Marquette versus Michigan State. I mean, Tom Izzo, Mr. March versus Shaka Smart. We'll talk about this. I'm going to push Michigan State ahead, but like if Michigan State does have a bugaboo, it's that they don't make 3-pointers. I think they make 29 or 30% of their threes on the season, but they're so big. They're so tough defensively, and they just grind teams down to the pulp. I mean, they just beat you, and then you just don't want to. They're kind of like Houston from a couple of years ago, honestly, in my opinion. But I'm gonna say Michigan State over Marquette, and that's something I feel like 95% confident in.
You could have stopped your statement at Izzo versus Shaka Smart, and I would have believed you. This Michigan State team makes no sense that they're this good. I know Jace Richardson obviously has come on over the second half of the season and been a big difference maker, and they've got they don't have a ton of talent. They have Jace Richardson, and then they have a bunch of really good role players that Izzo has has kind of molded into Michigan State basketball. Marquette is a really fun offensive basketball team. They are streaky. Cam Jones is electric. The concern I would have is, you get a Cam Jones game and he takes over, and he is fully capable of doing that. But again, stop the statement at Izzo versus Shaka Smart in a second round matchup and go ahead and give me the Spartans.
Yeah, my run for the Lobos stops pretty early. They get one against Marquette, and then Tom Izzo ends that pretty quickly, and they move on.
Well, it's set up for
the Izzo matchup that everyone wants, but it could be one earlier on.
Well, we're down to 4 teams in this region now. Auburn, Michigan. If this game happens, and we, 3 of us think it will, I see Auburn winning this game by 12 to 15 points.
Agreed. I don't, we've talked about the pitfalls with Michigan. Their guard play, as awesome as Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden are, that's great. Auburn has plenty of size to match up with that. And then it starts to come down to guard play when you start to think about that. And I mean, Auburn takes that and handfuls and handfuls against this Michigan team. So I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. It looks like we lost Alex. He had a couple of things he had to do tonight for the Big Spurs, so he might be in and out. But so we're going to go and push Auburn forward. Then you have Iowa State, Michigan State, and this is one of those games where flip a coin, man. Just flip a coin. I think Michigan State has overachieved this entire season. And Mitchell, you kind of mentioned that a little while ago. I think Iowa State is a really good team. I lean Iowa State here, but I'm not going to fight you guys on it.
Yeah, this is one where if Iowa State were to, or any of the guys that are coming back for Iowa State were to get re-injured, I'd have some concerns. But I think even in my personal bracket, I had Iowa State here. Like I mentioned earlier, I think Iowa State was rolling as one of the top 5 teams in the country that I would have put in that upper echelon tier that I mentioned at the start. So I would stick with Iowa State here just because this feels like the exit round for Michigan State and almost, I don't want to say the ceiling as a 2 seed, but because they are a 2 seed and they've had this run and Izzo's got them this far. But I like this Iowa State team, and I like that matchup for them too.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because I think Michigan State could beat Auburn. more than I think Iowa State can beat Auburn. I'll be really blunt with you. I think they just match up better with Michigan State than they do Auburn. If Michigan State were to win this game, I could 100% see a situation where Michigan State and their grit and their toughness and their head coaching chops defeat Auburn and go to the Final Four. But, all three of us just agreed on Iowa State. So now we have Auburn and Iowa State with a berth to the Final Four on the line. So I'll let Mitch go first here, and then Alex, and then I'll bring up the rear.
Auburn. This downfall of Auburn has been over the last couple of weeks has been greatly exaggerated. I know they lost 3 of 4. I said it for the better part of this year. It felt like this Auburn Duke collab in San Antonio was felt very similar to Baylor Gonzaga a couple of years ago, where they were clearly the 2 best teams in the country for the majority of the season. I know they slipped down a little bit down the stretch. All their losses came after they had already clinched the SEC regular season. I think this little layoff is good for them. I've got Auburn cutting down the nets going to San Antonio here. A place that notable Auburn alum Charles Barkley is absolutely in love with down in San Antonio. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go Auburn here as well. Like I really just kind of want to see, to be honest, just want to see an Auburn-Florida Final Four matchup. I think that'd be insanely fun. So I'm going to go with Auburn.
Yeah, I'm not going to mess up the juju here. I have Auburn. You probably picked up on that when I said that Michigan State would give Auburn a better game. I think Auburn's destined for the Final Four this year. I do. And, I'm not going to repeat what Mitch said, but I agree with him. So we finished that. So finished that region. And like I told everyone, this is going to be a bit of a longer show. We're about 30 minutes in and we've done one region. So we'll try and pick up the pace here a little bit, but we're not gonna just skirt past games that we think are important. So just to recap, in the first round, we have Auburn, Creighton, Michigan, Texas A&M, North Carolina, Iowa State, and Marquette. Then we have Auburn over Creighton, Michigan over Texas A&M, Iowa State over Marquette, or Iowa State over North Carolina, and then Michigan State over Marquette, then Auburn over Iowa State to go to the Final Four. Alex, I'm hungry, so how about you go ahead and hit that D's Wings commercial? We're going to hit that a couple times tonight. We're going to do a commercial break between each round so we can all gather our breath.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. When I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Welcome back into the show. Alex and I were kind of texting here on the side, and if you're not hungry yet, you're going to be hungry because we have a lot of D's Wings commercials coming your way. So D's Wings is going to have a big day tomorrow. Excited for that. And heck, look, I might just drive to Columbia and get some D's Wings myself. But we're going to move on down. We're going to stay on the left side of the bracket here. The first game is Florida versus Norfolk State. This is a situation where I don't know if y'all realize it. I didn't realize it until I looked at it, but Todd Golden has never won an NCAA tournament game before.
Oh, wow.
That changes here.
Yeah. This is a game where I think the line's 28.5. I think that it's a name your number game for Florida, and I would not be surprised at all if Golden just says, "Look, we're here. We're gonna win. We're gonna send a message." And I mean, Florida's deep; they can do what they want here. So we're gonna move Florida forward. The next game is really, really interesting to me because it is the 8 seed Connecticut Huskies versus the 9 seed Oklahoma Sooners. UConn has won 12 consecutive games in NCAA tournament, covering every single one of them. Last time I looked, this line was UConn -5.5, UConn -6. This is a game where I think it's going to be sneaky, y'all. I think that Oklahoma can stick around. They make their free throws. They force fouls. UConn is not good defensively this year, but all of their guards are turnstiles. So I don't know which way I'm leaning. I kind of want to get y'all's take on it before I give my final answer. But Alex, how about you go ahead on this game, because it is SEC and you've seen Oklahoma a number of times.
I keep thinking, I'm like, there's no way that Hurley lets you. I think about fear and what he can do and how good he can be, and I'm gonna go Oklahoma. I think they get it done.
I'll disagree there, just from almost the first point you made about Dan Hurley not letting them lose. UConn, when they win healthy, which they are now, with Liam McNeely back and Caravan back to full strength, I don't see them losing this game to Oklahoma. I think they match up fairly well with them, and I would agree in the fact that, like, everyone's talking about Florida getting screwed and having to play UConn in the second round. And usually when you think that in an 8-9 matchup, the exact opposite happens. So I have that working against me, but I would definitely lean UConn here. I think they match up pretty well with Oklahoma. Even though Fears is probably the best player on the court. Some might disagree and say it's McNeely. But yeah, I'm going to lead UConn here.
So I'm going to break this tie, and I'm going to take UConn, but Oklahoma covers. I think it's going to be a very close game. I really do. I think that everything that Oklahoma does well on offense, UConn sucks at defensively. And I think it's a game that, look, I think Dan Hurley and his coaching staff might be the best coaching staff in the country. They're going to have a really, really good game plan. So I'm going to go UConn, but I would not be shocked at all if Oklahoma wins, and especially if they cover. Memphis, Colorado State. Colorado State might be one of the hottest teams in the country right now. We all love Nico Medved, however you pronounce his last name. He coached at Furman for a number of years. And then you have Memphis and Penny Hardaway and the allure of what he's done in the past. I think two of the best offensive players in the country are playing in this game. And I lean Memphis. Memphis is kind of like a computer tricker, because they're actually not a computer tricker. They are a selection committee tricker, because the computer numbers really are not good for Memphis. And they've won a handful of games. I mean, they beat Connecticut a couple months ago in 2 overtimes, I think in Maui or whatever it was. But I'm going to take Memphis to win this game. But this is that 5-12 game that I have circled.
I am definitely going to disagree with this. I love this Colorado State team. You mentioned they're one of the hottest teams in the country. I think Nate Clifford is going to have a 10, 15-year NBA career. They also have Ethan Morton, transfer from Purdue, who played for a national title, runner-up, I guess, last year at Purdue. Really well-coached team, extremely hot right now. Memphis, I will say, Penny Hardaway, the job he did this year with coming into the season, there was a whole bunch of controversy surrounding him. I don't think he had an assistant coach on staff until a week before the season started. There was a ton going on with that. PJ Haggerty's awesome. Memphis is going to be down Tyrese Hunter last I checked, which is kind of
he's out. He's in a boot. He ain't coming back.
Yeah. So I in Colorado State's favor here. I mean, Vegas isn't making an accident by that, by a lot of people liking this. So I'm going to go with Colorado State here. I maybe have an affinity for them just because I've been watching a lot of games and they rolled that Mountain West tournament, and Nee Clifford was awesome.
Alex,
yeah,
we got to break the tie.
Yeah. I kind of echo that. Penny Hardaway did really do an awesome job this year, really, because you mentioned his whole stuff with the coaching staff right before the season. But, I think the Colorado State team doing, they're really good. I'm a good Colorado State. He goes to Minnesota.
And I don't hate it at all. I don't hate that. Maryland Grand Canyon, I've heard some upset talk here. I think that Maryland might have one of the best top 6 players in the country. Outside of the top 6, that they aren't that great. But I got Maryland winning pretty easily against Grand Canyon.
Yeah, I'd agreed. Grand Canyon was awesome last year too. Won a tournament game last year against St. Mary's. That was an unbelievable matchup for them because St. Mary's didn't have the necessary size and kind of P5 ability to keep them from running. Maryland does, and I think Maryland's going to. This isn't a trendy upset pick. I think Maryland rolls.
Agree.
All right, Missouri versus Drake. Now this one is interesting to me. Drake is really, really good, y'all. Like they're a really good basketball team. Missouri is on the come up. I think Drake's pretty good, man. I like Missouri to win, but I like Drake to cover. So, what do y'all think? Okay,
you can
Mitch likes Missouri. That. Alex, what do you think?
You're trying to played the way they got towards the end of the year, they're shooting the way they were. They may could run away with this one, but I'm gonna go with Drake. I'm gonna go with Drake. I think they find a way to pull it off.
I'll lose this one. You could regurgitate my take from Michigan.
Right, well, I think Drake covers. I think Missouri wins. So Mizzou, we're going to push them forward. What's that?
I think my take on Michigan, UC San Diego.
Kind of breaking up on mine. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Oh, okay. Missouri can name their number then. Texas Tech, UNC Wilmington. I don't think we have to spend much time on this one. I think that Texas Tech is underseeded as a 3 seed. I think they're one of the best teams in the country.
Agreed.
Yep.
All right. So we're going to take Texas Tech. Kansas, Arkansas. This might be my most interesting first round matchup. Kansas spent more money than God has seen on NIL budget this year for guys that ended up being 8th, 9th guys on the team, like in the rotation. Arkansas, I think they've come up a little bit lately. They struggled as well. I lean Kansas here. I think Bill Self is just a better coach than John Calipari. But I want to get y'all's take on Kansas and Arkansas.
I think Kansas gets it done here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kansas is a 4.5-point favorite here. And I do see a comment in the chat that these guys have the same brackets. Insane. No, we're just 3 smart guys. Like, we understand what's happening. So, but appreciate the comment there, Thomas Odom. Anyway, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was just going to say I would love to see a Calipari, Rick Pitino game in the second round, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, then you got the Johnnies versus Omaha. I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. We're all going to advance St. John's, I'm assuming.
Yep.
All right, so St. John's. All right, moving into the round of 32, Florida and UConn. If UConn wins their game, and like Mitch said, like everyone just assumes UConn's going to win this going away because they're UConn. Sometimes these things don't work out that way. But Florida, UConn, I think that UConn has just as much talent as Florida has. But I think that Florida is just the UConn of past years. So I'm going to lean Florida, but I would not be surprised here at all.
UConn has dog walked a couple teams in the tournament the last couple of years. I think they get a little taste of their own medicine here. I think this is Florida big.
Yeah, this is not the game that I have Florida losing in the tournament. So I got them all the way going to a St. John's matchup. So I'm going Florida.
All right. So then you got Colorado State and Maryland. Oh man, this one's tough. This one's so tough for me. Uh, I mean, I kind of this is another one I think is kind of a coin flip. I'm gonna lean Maryland, but I can be talked out of it.
Maryland, I don't know if we said it or not. Maryland has one of the best starting fives in the country when you think of like 1 through 5 totally. Obviously, old Dairy Queen, the Blizzard down on the post is knocking it. Is one of the better players too. I think they have a little bit too much for Colorado State here, even though I think this would be an awesome game. I would lean Maryland here.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Then now we got two former Big 12 teams in Missouri and Texas Tech. Man, Missouri is so tough, but I think Texas Tech, I really think they're really, really good. And when I say they're really, really good, I think JT Toppin is just a ridiculous player. They have Grant McCaslin, a defensive guru, and I think that Texas Tech has a little bit more in the chamber than Missouri does, but this will be one of the best games of the tournament, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Texas Tech and Iowa State were very similar profiles for me when it comes to the tournament. Both 3 seeds, both dealing with some injury issues. Their players are most likely going to be back, but again, how close are they to 100%? All things in a vacuum. I like Texas Tech over Missouri. I think Missouri just is a little bit too up and down for me. But I could see this would be a game that if Missouri shoots very well, could easily win. But I'm going to take Tech here.
Yeah, since you are forcing me to pick Missouri in this game, I'm gonna go Missouri. But I'll still pick Texas Tech to win even if Drake was playing. But I'm gonna go Missouri. I'm sorry, I'm at Texas Tech. Sorry.
All right, then you got Kansas and St. John's. I think that this is just a game where St. John's is nastier, they're meaner, they're better, they're I don't know if they're better coached. I mean, Bill Self has the national championship as well, maybe 2. I can't remember at this point. I think he has 2. But I just think the St. John's has this kind of feel to them, and Kansas has been so hit or miss, and I don't think Kansas can string together 2 great games in a row. So give me the Johnnies, but I'm never going to count Bill Self out of anything.
Yeah, I think this would be one that maybe Kansas gets a little bit up early and everyone's thinking, oh, Kansas, they might make a run at this. They're figuring it out at the right time. But that's kind of the Johnny's MO this year is get down a little bit and then put everyone in hell and turn them over and then end up winning by, 8 to 12 points. And I think that's a similar script to follow here. I don't see Kansas being able to score for 40 minutes against the St. John's defense. And again, I think the Johnnies turn them over pretty well. And St. John's has proven all year they can beat good teams without making shots. And if they start to make a couple shots here and there, watch out. They're going to be pretty dangerous.
Yeah, I got this one being close, but Richmond and those guys in there at St. John's going to be a little bit too much. St. John's wins by 2. I'll go there.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for me with St. John's is that they're similar to Michigan State in some ways, that neither of them are great 3-point shooting teams, but St. John's might have had the very best defensive possession I've seen all season long. And I think it was against Marquette. And it was just the movement, the communication, the everything. It just that signals a well-coached team. And look, I'm never going to count on a Rick Pitino team. Say how he does it, I don't know. But he gets the players and he finds a way. So we're going to advance St. John's. You got Florida, Maryland here. This one's another tough one. Like, Florida is everyone's darling right now. Everybody's seeing, like, and the metrics back it up. Ken Pom, Evan Mia, Bart Torvik, they all say that Florida is probably the second best team in the country, according to the numbers. I think Maryland's pretty doggone good too. I just have more trust in Florida finding 3 consecutive really good games and, kind of having that 16 matchup, the 116 matchup tune up. I think I like Florida to advance over Maryland.
Yeah, no issues with me there. Maryland would have to kind of game script this perfectly for them to win, and Florida could win this about 10 different ways. So I like Florida here.
Yep.
All right, so we're advancing Florida. Now we have Texas Tech and St. John's. This one's tough for me. I lean Texas Tech, but I'd like to hear you guys' take on it.
Nah, I'm going St. John's. I mean, I don't know. I think that's where I just feel like, as you mentioned, Patino's just so good. With what he's done in the tournament, I'm going for St. John's.
This will be tough for one of our friends in the chat. I'm going to lean Texas Tech here as well. If Texas Tech is healthy by the second weekend, I think they have enough firepower to get past the Johnnies here. But this would be an all-time game, and I don't have a strong conviction either way. I just really like the way this Texas Tech team is made up. So I mentioned St. John's has won games without making shots. I don't know if this would be a team that you could do that against and feel confident in them moving on. So I've got Tech.
Well, we just lost a viewer. And you can tell who that viewer is in the chat box right now. But so we got Florida and Texas Tech. I'm going to take Texas Tech to beat Florida. Texas Tech has been really, really good this entire season. So is Florida. I think it's very, very difficult to win 9 games in a row, which Florida have to do to win the national title. And I think they won a couple games heading in to this to the postseason. I'm going to take Texas Tech here. And I think Grant McCaslin gets it done. Texas Tech does have a history of getting to the Final Four, but I don't feel super strongly about it.
I disagree. I think Florida has too much. I know that's the hot pick that everyone loves. The way that they're playing right now is it seems tough to pick against them, at least to get to get all the way out there. So I would say Florida here.
Yeah, for a Florida Texas Tech matchup, I'll go in Florida. But if Florida plays St. John's, I got St. John's in the Final Four. So we'll say that.
All right. Well, Buck's back in the chat now. So, all right. Well, Alex, let's hit one more. Let's hit another spot here from D's Wings. Looking forward to it. And if you're not hungry yet, you're going to be ordering D's Wings in a second.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. When I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia. Yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
Welcome back in. We are halfway through the bracket. I know it feels like a marathon, but this March will be gone before you know it. We're going to move to the top of the right side now, and we have Duke versus, I guess, Mount St. Mary's here. The big storyline for Duke is Cooper Flagg. I would be shocked if he plays against Mount St. Mary's in the 1-16 game.
No need. He might suit up, do some warm-ups, but no need.
So we'll go ahead and advance to Duke here. Then you have Mississippi State and Baylor. This is one where I think the selection committee did a really fun thing with Baylor potentially matching up against Duke. Jeremy Roach, who was essentially a 4-year starter at Duke, and then VJ Edgecombe, who came down to Baylor and Duke. VJ Edgecombe is going to be probably a top 10, maybe a top 5 player in the NBA draft. And then you have Mississippi State. And Mississippi State, when they turn it on, they're not the Mississippi State of old. They're not just a team that mucks it up. They have a much better offense this year. Their defense is a little poorer than it has been. I don't know, man. Baylor just seems to like be down to like 6-7 guys in the rotation. I think Mississippi State's a little bit deeper. I lean Mississippi State, but this is an 8-9 game where I can flip a coin.
I would lean Mississippi State too, just solely based on the fact that people, as you mentioned, people want to see Jeremy Roach versus Duke matchup. So what you want to happen out of the 8-9 to get to the 1 rarely ever actually happens. So give me Mississippi State and Josh Hubbard here.
Yeah, I'm going Mississippi State too. Chris Jans, 3 years in a row in the NCAA tournament. He hasn't won a game yet, but he's going to get one in this one.
So then you got Oregon and a team that Mitch is very familiar with from his time in college basketball, the Liberty Flames. Liberty no longer in the Big South, I don't think. So Oregon, Liberty. Look, Dana Altman, he does 2 things, or one thing really. Well, 2 things. He's always competitive in the regular season, and he always gets to the Sweet 16. So really difficult for me to pick against Oregon. So I'm going to lean Oregon's way. I think their offense is pretty good. I think that Oregon, might be the class of the, they're in the Big Ten now, which is so weird to say, but I was going to say the class of the Pac-12. So I'm gonna go Oregon's way here. Are we seeing an upset, y'all?
No.
Bias
aside, I would never pick Liberty if my life depended on it anyway. I do think Oregon wins. The fun stat about Liberty is I think they're like top 5 in 3-pointers in the country, and then bottom 5 in free throw percentage in the country. Makes no sense. They're a chaotic basketball team, but Oregon should handle them, especially down in Seattle.
So you got Arizona and Akron here. I've seen Akron as a trendy upset pick. It's kind of interesting. I was looking at some statistics today, and Arizona's only hit double-digit threes like 3 times this year. And if they are not hot from 3 against Akron in the opening round NCAA tournament, a new court they're playing on, it could get interesting. But I think this is a game where I will be placing a wager on Arizona to cover like the 16.5 point spread. But just if they're not making threes, it might get close.
Yeah, I would have liked Akron with a different matchup. Horrible matchup for them. I like Arizona here.
Yeah, Akron has this close for about 25 minutes, and then Arizona runs away with it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Akron first half against the spread.
Yeah,
making any bets here.
I think it's an over. I think that's the highest total in the first round. It's like 180 or something. Go ahead and hit it, and just and enjoy the points being scored in the up and down basketball.
So the next one here is BYU, VCU. And like what I mentioned earlier, these 5-12 games have kind of morphed into 6-11 games for upsets. VCU is, for all the Gamecock fans out there, Dave Odom's son is the head coach at VCU. It sounds like he's going to be getting a better job here pretty soon. Maybe Virginia. That's the hot rumor. BYU is one of the most fun teams to watch offensively in the country. They were hot as a firecracker to end the season. I mean, they were just cover. It didn't matter. They could be 7.5 point dogs and they were winning outright. So I like BYU here. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. They're definitely going to be playing on Thursday and Saturday, so they don't have the Sunday issue being Mormons. But I got BYU. And look, BYU in football, BYU in basketball. I just think that in a single elimination tournament, you trust the people that can't drink.
I love this BYU team. I think they can score. Matt, I think I texted you the first weekend of the season that I fell in love with Igor Demon and the 6'9" Russian point guard. That's going to be a lottery pick. So yeah, I like BYU here pretty handily.
What's the spread in this one?
I want to say
I think it's like 5.5.
Yeah, 6.5, something like that.
Yeah, BYU, they cover.
All right, so we're going to take BYU. That's a consensus. Then you got Wisconsin, Montana. This Wisconsin team isn't your typical Wisconsin team. They're just not running the swing offense and killing clock. they'll go out there and they'll try and score on you. I think this is a game where Wisconsin can name their number. We've talked about that a few times, the different teams, but this Wisconsin team, I think, probably had an argument to be a 2 seed. Being a 3 seed feels right to me, but I don't think Montana can stay in the game at all.
Yeah, Wisconsin easy here. We can talk about the next matchup more in depth because that's more interesting.
Yeah, Alex, we'll start with you on this one. St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. I don't think anybody in the country thought that Vanderbilt would be in this situation, even as a 10 seed, to be in the NCAA tournament, new coach. And we talked about this on our show. Every single contributor is a first-year player at Vanderbilt. They've never been in this situation before. St. Mary's has always been kind of the bridesmaid to Gonzaga in the West Coast Conference. This is one where I think Vanderbilt has the better athletes. I think that Vanderbilt can win this game outright, but I'm never going to count St. Mary's out.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive what they've done this year at Vandy. And this one, I'm interested to watch McLaughlin and Carey in the paint. I'm really interested to see it because if they can have a good game, I think that's what's going to lead Vanderbilt to win. But I think that's kind of the key. Can they get enough in the post down low? Because I think we know what Tyler Nickel and those guys can do. 3-ball if they're on. So I'm going to go Vanderbilt. I think they get it done. It's close, but they found a way.
I disagree. And this is more St. Mary's has had bad tournament appearances of recent years too. I think this is a team. I think they can try and control the pace a little bit better against Vandy. They've lost some upsets. I like St. Mary's here mainly just so I could watch Bama blow them out in the next round. But watching St. Mary's plays basketball frustrates me. I hate the super slow everything down teams that St. Mary's always have. But I think this is a good enough roster for them to get past Vandy here. But I don't have like super strong opinions.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's like the other thing that's fresh in everyone's mind is St. Mary's not hitting a 3-pointer against Gonzaga. Look, we're going to talk Gonzaga here later in the bracket. I have not given a pick yet. I'm actually going to take St. Mary's in this game, but I'm just saying I wouldn't be surprised if Vanderbilt wins. St. Mary's just been here before. They know what they're doing. I like St. Mary's to win. Alabama versus Robert Morris. We're just going to go ahead and push Bama through here, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we'll push Bama through. All right, so just to recap, we're back at the top of the bracket. We have Duke versus Mississippi State. This is a game, in my opinion, where I just think that Duke's much better in every facet of the game than Mississippi State, with or without Cooper Flagg. I don't know if Duke gets challenged in this game. Duke has had – look, the scary thing for me with Duke is they lost to Kentucky and they lost to Kansas. And I don't think any of us would say that Kansas or Kentucky are top 15 teams, but that happened back in November. Since then, they've just rolled through people. I don't see Mississippi State stopping that. Just
no. Duke rolls.
I don't like the matchup for that for Mississippi State. Yeah, I think Duke runs away with it.
Duke rolls even if they don't.
The big thing for me, though, is like the Cooper Flagg stuff. I mean, Mitch, you've had ankle sprains before. Alex, you've had ankle sprains. I've had them. The dreaded high ankle sprain, which I don't know what Cooper Flagg has, but it looked like he dislocated his ankle on the injury. It didn't look good at all. If he does not play in this game, then I might consider Mississippi State just because, they're not a terrible team, but just let's watch that. Like, I don't know for certain that, Duke's going to say whatever they want to say about Cooper Flagg, and he's going to play until he doesn't. So we'll see what happens. But moving on, we got Oregon and Arizona
for that game. They just don't. They're good enough anyway, and I do think he'll be back to some degree for that game.
Yeah. Then we move on. We have Oregon and Arizona. I'm going to take Oregon. I think Tommy Lloyd is a fantastic coach. I like Caleb Love, but he can shoot you out of a game just as fast as he can shoot you into a game. And like the 3-point thing that I told you guys about earlier about hitting double-digit threes, you don't have to hit double-digit threes. Not many teams do, but Oregon's just too good offensively. I got Oregon over Arizona in this one.
Yep.
Looked like Alex was agreeing with you there. I would disagree. I would take Arizona here. Your classic Oregon Arizona Big 10 versus Big 12 matchup here. Yeah, I like Arizona, but I can see Oregon winning. This would be a coin flip for me, so I'm okay with y'all pushing Oregon through. I would love to see the Caleb Love versus Duke Sweet 16 though. Talk about narratives.
Oh yeah, Alex, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think Oregon finds a way to get through. I think, Matt, I think you mentioned Dana Altman earlier and how successful he's been in the tournament. I think that's one key that kind of gets them through.
Yeah, Dana Altman has a ridiculous record in games with a 48-hour turnaround. It's ridiculous. He's done a very good job. But I love that Mitch threw in there the classic Big 10 versus Big 12 matchup, Arizona versus Oregon. that really made me LOL there. Then you got BYU Wisconsin. This is a game that I think could be one of the best games of the tournament. I don't know which way I lean on this one. Wisconsin's a very trendy pick to get to the Elite Eight. I've seen that all over the place. I think BYU is a really good offensive team. I think Wisconsin's probably better overall. So I'm going to take Wisconsin here, but if y'all have a different opinion, I'd love to hear it.
I'm going Wisconsin. I agree. I agree that you think it's going to be a really good game, but I mean, I think Wisconsin just does enough.
It looks like this is the region where I disagree with the consensus for the most part. I like BYU here. I mentioned it earlier. I think this BYU team is just as hot, if not hotter, than anyone in the country with the way they play. And again, this is being played in Denver. So this is altitude, and BYU plays in altitude all the time. That matters in basketball, whether it's only a couple percentage points, but in the tournament, a couple percentage points here and there matter. So I would take BYU. I understand the Wisconsin hype. John Tonji's awesome, but I would disagree there and go BYU. So this might just be the region we all disagree in.
It could be. The next one we have is St. Mary's in Alabama. Mitch and I talked about this last night. We believe that Grant Nelson is going to play. I don't think he's going to play in the first game, by the way, Mitch. I don't think it's going to happen. But Grant Nelson, I think, will be back. But Bama is they're going to score too many points for St. Mary's to keep up, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think Alabama's too much.
Yeah, Bama rolls. Pick their number.
So we'll go Bama. Then you have Duke, Oregon. If Cooper Flagg is not back by now, he ain't coming back. But as we talked about, Mitch seems pretty confident that he's going to overcome this ankle sprain. I think Duke's better than Oregon. I don't know. I cannot remember where would this game would be played in
Newark.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Newark. Okay. If it's in Newark, then big Duke fan base will be there. Big. So I'll take Duke over Oregon, and I don't really have very many problems saying that.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Then we got – so Mitch disagrees, but we have Wisconsin, Bama. In this situation, this is where I understand how Wisconsin can make it to the Elite Eight. If they do get past BYU and they play Alabama, I think Wisconsin still has enough defensive principles in them to limit Bama, but I got Bama winning this game. But Bama's so scary, y'all. Last year, I didn't think they were going to make the Final Four, and I just didn't think they could string together 4 games defensively. And I'm still concerned about that this year, maybe even more so than last year. And Bama hasn't been great away from home, under Nate Oates. This one's scary for me, but I'm going to take the better team and the best player on the court, and I think that's Mark Sears and Alabama.
Yeah, I've got Bama here. It would be an interesting game if I had my pick and it was BYU. That would be another fun over game. to take, but I like Bama here. I've liked Bama pretty much all season when it comes to their ability to score. And until really about the last 10 games, they hadn't shot the three all that well. They're starting to shoot it a little bit better. Kevin Youngblood coming back to life. So I like this Bama team.
Yeah, I think Tonchi's going to have a big game, but this is the matchup they end up getting. And I'm interested. Would be interested to see the defensive matchup, Wisconsin versus Alabama, but I think Alabama's too good. They advance.
All right, so now we got Duke and Bama. Really quick, Mitch, have you ever bet an under in your life?
It's few and far between. Few and far between. I look for overs. I like rooting for points, Matt.
Yeah. All right, so then you got Duke Bama. This is where I do think that Bama's defensive issues can come into play. I think that Duke just has an answer for everybody on the court for Alabama, especially if people are flags playing. Duke is top 5 in the country in offensive and defensive efficiency. This game is going to be played in Newark. Look, Alabama fans will travel, but I think that I'm punching Duke's ticket to the Final Four here, and I feel pretty decent about it.
Yep.
Agreed.
All right. Well, Alex, we're going to take one last break, one more sponsor. This is going to be D's Wings again. Actually, I should have said, can y'all guess the sponsor? But D's Wings is going to be our sponsor. And last year, Mitch, I think you remember we had Chicken Cock on here. You were loving that Chicken Cock whiskey. But D's Wings one more time, Alex, and then we'll get to the final region and then our Final Four picks.
Mike here for one of the better dining options in the capital city. You know, when I first moved there, I asked people around the radio station, where are the best wings? Well, the consensus was D's Wings. That was then. Today, they still have the best wings, but it's so much more. Now in their new location at 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia, yeah, they get voted the best wings on a routine basis. Yes, they get voted the best sports bar on a routine basis, but they're not just about wings, and really, they're not just a sports bar. It is a family-run local restaurant and bar with 20 TVs and 25 beers on tap. And how about these daily specials? Every Monday night at D's, you've got 75-cent wings from 4 until closing. Tacos on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, 18 wings and a pitcher of beer for $29. You've also got ribs and oyster bucket specials on Thursday. And no matter how big the party is, 20 or more, no problem. Just call ahead of time and they'll take terrific care of you. They'll do takeout as well. And guess what? A human will answer the phone and take the order. Billy and his staff do an outstanding job. Check out D's 415 Meeting Street in West Columbia.
All right, well, welcome back. I'm laughing, y'all, because a lot of the comments tonight are from people we know, Mitch and I specifically, and they don't watch a single show the entire year until me and Mitch give our bracket picks because they just want to know what we're going to pick, and because we're all in bracket challenges together, so they're getting all the intel, but so are you guys and gals, and we're excited about that. Moving on to the Midwest bracket, the last bracket we're going to talk about tonight because it's the last one that we can talk about. Houston versus SIU Edwardsville. Everyone's just going to move Houston forward. I'm not even going to spend time on it. And then Gonzaga, Georgia. Look, this is one where Gonzaga is not the Gonzaga that we've seen over the past couple of years. I don't think they're as good. And Georgia, I think a lot of people are sleeping on Georgia. I think it's like a 6-point line. I know a lot of sharp people are taking Georgia to cover, but Gonzaga to win. I'm going to take Gonzaga in this game. I think that they're a really good team. I think that they are at least offensively good enough. My biggest worry here is if Ike gets in foul trouble because Georgia has 20 guys. It seems like they can roll out there that are all 6'10", 7 foot. If he gets in foul trouble, I'm worried. But Mark Few, all he does is make Sweet 16s. He's made 10 in a row, and I'm going to take him against Georgia. But like y'all's opinions.
I like Gonzaga here too. I have the hot take about this Gonzaga team that I think they're actually better when Ike is not on the floor. I like their backup bigs and the way they play. As far as like stylistically, it's closer to Gonzaga with him off the floor. Obviously, a big part of what they've done, and he averages like probably 17 and 11 a game. But especially when you get up against some of these guys that aren't in the West Coast Conference that he can't just tower over. I like the way Huff and Greg are off the bench better. So I like Gonzaga here.
Yeah, I think Silas Denver and Azanu are going to have big games in this one, and I think Gonzaga does just enough and escapes.
Yeah, I mean, my big thing for Georgia is they just don't have a point guard. If they had a point guard, maybe things would change, but they don't have a point guard. And Andrew Nembhard is a really good point guard, and point guards win in March. That's just what happens. All right, so the next one here, maybe Gamecock fans have been waiting for this one. Gamecocks don't have, anything to crow about except for beating this team in the regular season. But you have Clemson versus McNeese State. Will Wade has already accepted a head coaching job at NC State. Kind of interesting timing. I guess NC State wants to get on the national media scope with their hiring. Clemson and McNeese State. McNeese State is a trendy upset pick. I think that Clemson's a little too gritty for McNeese State. I think that when you have Shefflin and you have Locken, those two big guys that just eat up. Well, Shefflin eats up rebounds and Locken can stretch the floor. I think that Clemson's going to win this game, but I would definitely take the under in this game. I don't know what the under is. I just see this being like a 65-55 game. Clemson wins.
Probably not often you have a Clemson fan on the show. However, I think I'm probably more critical of Clemson basketball than anyone on this show that you've probably ever had has been, Matt. I've been vocal about that. However, you're
the only Clemson fan we've ever had on the show.
I got to keep living with Brownell. I think we just extended them through 2031 or something like that. This isn't a game Clemson loses. This is a Brownell special. They typically do pretty well against these lower major teams. So McNeese was a big trendy pick last year, and they got blown out in the first round too. So I think it's a lower scoring game. But yeah, I think Clemson handles them.
Yeah, I don't think it's a good matchup.
My lock of the tournament is bet the under.
I won't be joining you just out
Go
of
ahead,
principle.
Alex. Sorry,
But...
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was saying I don't like the matchup for McNeese. I think with Shefflin and Lockman is too much. I think Clemson wins this one.
Then you have Purdue and High Point. If there was ever an over game to bet, it's this one. I know that Mitch will be on the over in Purdue High Point. I don't think that High Point is going to beat Purdue. Everyone remembers Purdue losing as a number one overall seed, but I got Purdue rolling here.
Agreed.
Probably by 10 to 15 points.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Same, Alex?
Yeah.
All right. So Illinois versus I don't know who's winning that Xavier game right now. Is it
12-10 Texas?
Okay, so Xavier, Texas will play the winner of Illinois. I don't know how much it matters. I do think that Illinois is going to win this game. So I got Illinois coming out regardless of opponent. But I would say that I like Xavier a little bit more than Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this game will be a toss-up. It's Texas has Trey Johnson. He's he's a lottery pick. He's kind of a chucker. He has the potential to go for 40 in a game, but I like Illinois here. I think they handle either one of these teams too.
Yeah, I think Xavier.
And don't forget, before Mitchell was a Clemson fan, he was an Illinois fan.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was saying I think Xavier gets out of this one with Texas, and then they fall to Illinois.
Yeah, so then you got Kentucky and Troy. I've seen a lot of Troy hype. I think Kentucky's too good offensively for Troy to keep up with. I don't have much faith in Kentucky's defense, and I don't think Kentucky's going to be in this tournament very long. I don't think they're going to make an Elite Eight run, Final Four run, but I do have Kentucky beating Troy.
Yeah, Troy is not a good basketball. Troy's not a very good basketball team. Kentucky rolls here.
Yep.
All right, now we got UCLA and Utah State in one of the most interesting games, I think, in the first round. I have zero faith in UCLA, mainly because I think Mick Cronin hates his players and his players hate him. and they're so hit or miss. I mean, they can go out and win by 17 and lose the next night by 28. I'm going to take Utah State just out of principle because I don't have any faith in Cronin and UCLA. I think that Cronin would take the first job he could out. And I think that if Indiana hadn't hired DeVries, he would have put his name in that hat immediately after the season if he hadn't already. So I'm going to take Utah State here.
I would disagree with that. This Utah State team is not nearly as good as the Utah State of last year. They don't shoot the three nearly as well. They've got a couple decent pieces. Mainly, they try and a little bit play through the post, and UCLA has a ton of size, and they have a lot of it. So I like UCLA here to get it done. But again, I'm not super strongly opinionated against Utah State. I just think there's maybe some nostalgia with how good Utah State's been in previous years.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I'm taking Utah State just more because of what Matt said. I don't trust UCLA. So I'll go with Utah State.
And look, the Mountain West Conference is going to win a game eventually. Eventually, they're going to win one. So,
Colorado State, we already picked it.
You got
Yeah.
So they'll win 2 this year. Maybe it's a Mountain West Conference resurgence. But you got Tennessee and Wofford at the bottom of this region. This is another name your number. If Tennessee really cares and wants to blow them out, they will. I feel bad for the home state Wofford Terriers, but they should just be happy to be here. So I'm going to take Tennessee.
Yep.
All right. So this is one of the more interesting games. You got Houston and Gonzaga. Look, Houston is a very, very trendy pick to make the Final Four. I think that Houston is a team that is built for the NCAA tournament in every way, shape, and form imaginable. It is pure hell to play against Houston for 40 minutes. So I got Houston beating Gonzaga, but I'm going to be pulling for Gonzaga, if that makes any sense.
I'm okay with you advancing Houston here. I am picking Gonzaga in this game. I'm picking Gonzaga in this game just for the fact it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. This is Gonzaga's worst team in a decade, at least. So this would obviously be the team that you would pick to break the streak of Sweet 16s. I just think that the problem I have with Houston, and this has been relevant for a lot of the Houston teams, is they let teams hang around that are of a similar talent level. And in March, when games are close, they can turn into coin flips when they shouldn't be. So I would lean an upset here, just kind of betting a little bit with my heart on the Gonzaga side. Just I've liked Gonzaga over the last couple of years, and this is the team you would think wouldn't be able to go to the Sweet 16. But I'm okay if y'all move Houston along here.
Yeah, I'm tiebreaker, Alex.
Yeah, I'm going Houston. I think that was Jake Pryor. It's going to be too much. Those guys do it.
So now we have Clemson versus Purdue. Purdue does not play defense. Like, it's just completely optional. It's so weird to see a Matt Painter team not play defense, but they really don't. They just don't care. I think that Clemson obviously made to the Elite Eight last year. And look at what they did in the ACC this year. I mean, they're one of 3 teams to beat Duke. And look, that game, when Clemson took control of that game, the game was over. And, Duke really didn't have an opportunity to come back. So looking at that Clemson-Purdue game, I just wonder if Clemson can score enough points.
I like Purdue here. Experience matters in the tournament, and you'll call me crazy for saying that Clemson doesn't have the experience. They really have Chase Hunter. But I love Braden Smith to control the pace of this game. And you say that Purdue doesn't play defense. Their defense can look, all worldly against a Brad Brownell coached offense at times, I'm sure. So give me Purdue here to beat the Tigers.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Now we got Illinois, Kentucky. And this is one of those things where it's kind of like Alabama last year. I don't trust Illinois to put 4 games together, but I do trust them to put 2 games together. And Kentucky has just been so hit or miss lately. I mean, I don't know if everybody's healthy at Kentucky right now. It seems to be kind of a mystery. This is one of the harder games to predict, but I lean towards Illinois in a seed upset, but I could be talked off of it, but I'm going to go with Illinois. Alex, you've watched a lot of Kentucky this year. Where are you thinking of just about Kentucky and then the game itself?
They need Lamont Butler, and who knows how healthy he is. And I don't know, even if he plays, who knows if he's 100% healthy just because of all he's dealt with. And he's a difference for that team. So I'm going to Illinois.
Yeah, I would probably lean Kentucky here, but I don't hate the Illinois pick because there's so many variables with this Kentucky team, mainly Lamont Butler and his health. So I'm okay with y'all advancing Illinois here.
Yeah, so we went ahead and did that. We advanced Illinois. Now we have Utah State and Tennessee. And, for all the things that Mitch just said about Utah State earlier, I agree. I just don't trust UCLA, but I do trust Tennessee. Rick Barnes is really good until he has a chance to go to the Elite Eight or the Final Four. So Rick Barnes is going to get it done here. I'm fine pushing Tennessee through unless you guys have any heartburn over it.
I like that.
All right. So Tennessee. So Houston versus Purdue to go to the Elite Eight. This is a situation where I think Purdue has to play their best game of the season to beat Houston in this type of game. I do think that Houston is susceptible. I mean, they just, like Mitch talked about, them letting teams stick around. There's no reason that Baylor should have been winning by like 8 at halftime and then, got down by 10, 11, 12 points and then made it a one possession game at the end of the regulation. I think in the last regular season game. I think that Matt Painter's a good coach. He's won the national title. No, he didn't win the national title, but yeah, he did, didn't he? Who won last year? I'm not blanking on that. UConn. So he did. So he made a Final Four. He didn't win a national title. So I like Purdue here over Houston, but I'm not married to it. Like for a lot of games. So all this consensus talk in the chat box, there's a lot of let's talk through it and then we come to a consensus. I'll take Purdue over Houston, but I'm not going to be mad if y'all both take Houston.
If this is the matchup, I'd take Houston every time. I think they could bottle up what Purdue does well on offense fairly easily. So I would lean Houston in this matchup.
Yeah, I was going to say Houston's defense would be too much in this. And then Houston does more than enough offensively. I kind of think Houston kind of wins this comfortably.
Yeah.
Well, now we have Illinois and Tennessee. And I think this is where the run ends for Illinois. It's been a great run, but I got Tennessee winning this game. Tennessee's just been so consistent all season long. I mean, they beat Florida by 20-plus points. So, like, Tennessee is a little bit better on offense than they have been in years past. And even last year with Dalton Connect kind of being their offense, I think that Tennessee has enough to get it done here. So I'm going to move Tennessee forward unless you guys have any issue with that.
No, I agree.
No.
So what might be the ugliest game in Elite Eight history will be Houston versus Tennessee. This might be a first to 50 wins. Golly. I mean, this one, I kind of lean Tennessee here, y'all. Like, I know it feels like I've been trying to eliminate Houston ever since the first round, but it's just one of those things where they're good, but I don't know if they're elite. And I don't think the Big 12 has been elite this year. So I think this is the year that Rick Barnes makes it to the Final Four.
Yeah, I mean, everyone can't win in March until they can't. Now, normally that happens for younger coaches, but I mean, Jay Wright had the stigma for forever on him that he couldn't win in March. I think this is the year Rick Barnes gets it done and goes to the Final Four with Tennessee. I like this Tennessee team. I think they have enough at each level to be able to get it done, and especially in this region that I think is actually the weakest region of the four.
Yeah, I'm taking Tennessee, and I would take the under in that game no matter what it is.
Well, we've done it. We've gotten to a Final Four. I told everyone this is going to be a longer episode. I appreciate you all sticking with us. So our Final Four is 3 SEC teams and 1 ACC team. So Auburn and Florida will match up with an opportunity to go to the national championship, and Duke and Tennessee will as well. Auburn, Florida, I lean Florida just because I think that they're the more complete team. And there's a chance that – what's the guy's name from Auburn, Mitch, that can get a technical foul like Draymond Green at any time?
Baker
He has like the
Mazar.
double last name.
Yeah.
I think that he blows it for Auburn and might be a close game. But I like Florida to get past Auburn. I think that Florida is one of the top 2 teams in the country right now and has been the entire season. The only thing that can derail this, and I do wonder this, I wonder if there's going to be another woman that comes forward before the NCAA tournament starts about Todd Golden. Like, I could see national media like talking someone into that. I don't know if it'll be a distraction, but I got Florida over Auburn.
I've got Auburn here. I talked about it earlier. If you would have asked me 2 months ago, I would have put my hand on the table and said, bet it Auburn to Duke to the national title to face off. That's gone down a little bit with Auburn's recent struggles. I would stick with that personally, but I understand the logic in picking Florida here.
I think the guards for Florida are a little bit too much, and the way they're playing right now, I mean, it's at a high level, the way they're playing, and they're going to continue rolling through. They get to national championship.
All right, so we got Florida. Florida playing in the national championship for the first time since, I guess, 2007 when they won back-to-back, 06-07 under Billy Donovan. Now you have Duke, Tennessee. Tennessee eliminated Duke 2 years ago in the NCAA basketball tournament. It was a game where Duke never got comfortable and Tennessee just made their life hell. This is a different Duke team. That Duke team was pretty soft, in my opinion, but it's going to be difficult. I cannot see Duke not winning this particular game. I can see them, if they were in a different side of the bracket, I can see them not making the Final Four. But this particular side of the bracket, I think, suits them well. If they were playing Houston, I would pick Houston over Duke just because of the age, the experience, the way Houston plays. But we have Tennessee here, so I'm going to take Duke over Tennessee. Mitch and Alex, y'all's thoughts?
Yeah, there's not a matchup on the floor that favors Tennessee in this game. I would take Duke here.
Yeah, same thing, Duke.
All right. So for the record, Mitch has Auburn versus Duke. Matt and Alex have Florida versus Duke. Mitch, let's just do you really quick. If it was Auburn and Duke, who would you take to win the national championship?
It would pain me, and I would root hard against this because I do not like Duke as a program. Once Coach K left, the Duke hate kind of wore off a little bit on me, and I actually think this Duke team is fairly likable. They don't have like the fourth-year guy that's has an extremely punchable face, but this Duke team is extremely talented. I like, especially once by this time you would expect them to be back to full strength. There's just not a weakness to this Duke team. I mean, you mentioned the games that they've lost. They were super early, and then the Clemson game, they lost whatever. It was at Clemson. That's bound to happen in college basketball here and there. But they're rolling. They won the ACC tourney without Cooper Flagg for the last stretch. I like Duke in pretty much any of the matchups that you could put in front of me. Again, pains me to say it, but I'd take Duke.
All right, so Alex, Florida versus Duke. Who do you like? Who are you taking?
I'm going Florida. I think they win if that's the matchup. I just think the way they're playing, the way they showed kind of late season into that SEC tournament, like they look like the best team in the country to me. So I'm going to stick with it and go Florida.
I'm going to take Florida as well. Florida just played Tennessee in the SEC championship. We have Duke beating Tennessee to go to the national championship. I thought Florida was pretty much in control that entire game. It got a little squirrely, but I just trust the experience of Florida more than I trust the experience of Duke. So give me Florida to win. Mitch picks Duke in this scenario, or the two scenarios we laid out. I'm taking Florida. SEC gets another national championship. SEC, it just means more. But Mitch, cannot thank you enough for being on the show tonight. We might try and bring you back here for a Final Four preview or something like that, when we get
Love
down to it. This is the most fun time of the year.
It is. It's the best. I thoroughly appreciate you bringing me on. I love doing it. So feel free to have me on later in the tournament if needed as well for a preview. So appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you, Mitch. And Alex, next week will be a lot more Gamecock talk. We'll be talking women's college basketball tournament. Maybe there'll be some transfer stuff that's happening on the men's side. Spring practice is in full swing. Baseball, softball. It's really fun. It's really fun time of the year. So, Alex, I appreciate you sticking with us. I'm sorry about the delay to start, but I think we knocked it all out, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, that was awesome episode. I mean, it's like you mentioned, it's the best time of the year, and sitting here watching Texas and Xavier before 2 full days of games nonstop, it's awesome. But it was a whole lot of fun to talk about it tonight.
Oh, yeah. Well, don't forget, everybody, go to Ernie.com. Make sure that you submit your bracket. If the Gamecocks get the most brackets in there, there's going to be a really cool party that everyone's invited to. Really excited for that. If you win, if you have the best bracket, you'll win $5,000. It's a no-cost thing. So, go ahead and hop in. I know Alex and I will both be in there. It'll be a lot of fun to track everything. And you kind of got a inside baseball on me and Alex's picks on this entire tournament, but we appreciate it. So Ernie.com, ERNIE.com, Ernie.com. And as always, we appreciate all you guys and gals for sticking with us. When you give us your time, you give us the most valuable thing you have. We appreciate it. It never goes underappreciated. And we cannot wait to be back here next week and hopefully talking some fun things that are happening in the Gamecock sports world. But until then, we'll see you soon. Bye, everybody.